In the last half hour, we told you about Missouri's prison population reaching its highest level. And here to provide some insight is Beth Huebner. She is an associate professor of criminology at the University of Missouri St. Louis. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, let's revisit the numbers again. The Department of Corrections in Missouri says that at the end of September this year, it set a record with 30,720 inmates, and that is up from the previous record that was set in 2005. Just up by 66 inmates. So is this part of a growing trend to see this number increase this much?
Yes, this is something that we're really concerned about. And so if you think about it in context, in about 20 years ago, we had about 8,000 people in prison. And so it's almost tripled since that time. So it's part of a long growth trend. And so that's why we're most concerned about the number.
And here's a look at the facility in Farmington. Why the increase?
There's a lot of reasons. The increase can happen at the front end. So we actually don't have any more crime in this time. We have crime declining, but we have more people who are sentenced to prison, whereas they might have gone to probation before. And we also have people serving longer sentences than they did in the past. So we have more people going into prison, and then they're staying there longer. So we are running out of space.
So if you're an offender, your chances of spending time in prison are much greater than they were in the past.
Sure. 20 years ago, we've cracked down, understandably, on things like drug crimes and weapons offenses. So, and things like methamphetamine, you see a lot of legislation for that. So that just increases the population, even though the crime, like I said, is still down.
Great. Well, coming up in the next half hour, we'll talk with Beth Huebner about some of the efforts to address what is a growing prison population in Missouri. So we'll check in with you again in the 6 o'clock hour.
Okay.
Jennifer, back to you.
Thanks, Jasmine. Here's Jane King with this morning's Bloomberg Business.
Scott, thanks. Well, criminologists are studying why Missouri's prison population is at an all-time high. And Beth Huebner is an associate professor of criminology at the University of Missouri St. Louis. And in the last half hour, you said, more people are being sent to prison. Courts are trying to clear their backlog. Those are just a few of the factors. Do you see this trend continuing, that the prison population is just growing and growing in Missouri?
I think there's a distinct possibility. Things like sentencing laws that we have on the books, mandatory sentencing that require people serve a certain amount of their prison term, are going to continue. So we're going to probably have more people in prison for a while, although the state has made some efforts to try to reduce its population.
And what are some of those efforts?
The state currently is not in plans to build another prison, so we have to deal with the population like it is now. And the state has also developed a number of really innovative programs to manage people more effectively in the community.
And I was looking at the list before we came back on air. It looks like there were probably close to 24 facilities.
There are.
Has there ever been talk of closing any of them?
There has been talk about closing a couple of our facilities. Many of them are quite old. And so the goal is to manage people in the community, if we can do that safely to the community.
What is the cost to the taxpayer? How much does it cost to keep someone in prison?
It's pretty substantial. It can cost about $12,000 a year just to take care of someone in prison, and then it costs millions of dollars to build a new prison. So the costs are pretty substantial, and if we keep people in the community, it can be anywhere from $1,000 approximately.
What do you think needs to be done, in your years of studying the prison population to improve the situation?
Well, I think we really need to think clearly about what our goals are. We're in an economic crisis, and imprisonment costs a lot of money. And there's a lot of research to suggest that certain offenders, right, not most, but there's definitely a group of people who are first-time offenders, less serious individuals who can be managed pretty effectively in the community with things like electronic monitoring. And so I think we need to look into technology in the community.
And one last question. How does Missouri stack up compared to other states? We've set our own record, but number 1 and 2 states are... Right.
So there's large increases in incarceration in California and in Texas. So this is part of a larger trend. So Missouri's problems are not unique. At the same time, like I said, most states are under pretty serious economic constraints and are working on this problem together.
Great. Beth Huebner is an associate professor of criminology at the University of Missouri St. Louis. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be right back.